Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. Today we are moving on to a new chapter after fundamental rights, which is directive principles of state policy. You are already familiar with this term, directive principles of state policy. Uh, we saw that when we had constitutional debates about fundamental rights, we decided to keep some of the rights as fundamental rights and enforceable, whereas we decided to keep another set of rights as directive principles of state policy, which are non-enforceable. Now, all our directive principles, DPSP, they are contained in Part 4 of the Constitution from Articles 36 to 51. Now, this concept of the idea of directive principles was borrowed from the Irish Constitution of 1937, and which had copied it from the Spanish Constitution. Now, coming to our set of directive principles, let's begin with the features of directive principles. Now, see, these principles are, first of all, non-justiciable, which means that you cannot call the government to court for not having implemented any of these DPSPs. And second is that they serve as guidelines while making laws for the people. So, government is supposed to, or the state is supposed to keep in mind the directive principles while framing their policies or laws. So, all their laws and policies should be aimed at achieving the directive principles. Next is that, or third one rather, they are mostly positive in nature, because all your directive principles are requiring the government to do certain things. All your directive principles require the government to do certain things. We saw that fundamental rights were mostly negative in nature. Why? Because they were actually preventing or prohibiting the government from doing certain things. The government was not supposed to interfere with the freedom of religion. The government was not supposed to muddle with your life and liberty. So those were kind of restrictions on the government. So now when it comes to DPSP, these are mostly positive. They are asking the government to do certain things. They are asking the government to provide people with certain things. Next is that they are social and economic in nature, which means they seek mostly to establish social and economic democracy. So their aim is to establish social and economic democracy. So next is they lay a foundation for economic democracy mostly, because most of your DPSPs are aimed at laying a foundation for a strong economic democracy. And lastly, most of these DPSPs supplement the fundamental rights that we have. They kind of give an extra polish to the fundamental rights. Mainly because they constitute the economic aspects of fundamental rights, its socio-economic aspects. See, we have already seen that fundamental rights and directive principles are distinct from each other. And that's the reason why we actually talk of the two separately or distinctively. Now, fundamental rights are enforceable, whereas DPSP or directive principles are not enforceable. Another one is that the courts can issue writs to help protect our fundamental rights. We just saw it in the previous video, that courts can issue writs to protect or enforce your fundamental rights. Now, in the case of the directive principles, you do not have any means to get it enforced. Number 3, Fundamental rights are rights of the people. See, number 3, do not confuse with the previous number. This number 3 is about the difference between fundamental rights and directive principles. Uh, Fundamental rights are rights of the people, while directive principles are not rights precisely, but they are duties. But of whom? Duties of the state. Okay, duty of the state. They have to, which they have to keep in mind while formulating policies or making laws. And then, as we have just seen, fundamental rights provide, or they act as rather restrictions on the states or limitations on the power of the state, whereas directive principles are obligations that the state is supposed to perform. So they are mostly positive in nature. And the next difference is that fundamental rights lay foundation for a political democracy, whereas in the case of directive principles, they strengthen social and economic democracy. Now coming to classification of directive principles. Based on the content of these directive principles, I'm sorry, before that I think I should be reading out some of the important directive principles for you, so that you get an idea of what is contained in this list of directive principles. I'm just randomly reading a few, because this is a quite long list. It says state or states are to secure social order for the promotion of people's welfare. The state shall strive to minimize inequalities in income and endeavor to eliminate inequalities in status. The state shall direct its policy towards securing all citizens, men and women equally, the right to have adequate means of livelihood. The state shall direct its policy towards securing equal pay for equal work for both men and women. Then it also talks about equal justice and free legal aid, organization of village panchayats, the right to work, the right to education, public assistance in certain cases. It talks about living wages for workers, then provision for just and humane conditions of work and maternity relief, uniform civil code for citizens, participation of workers in the management of industries. Then it says it's a duty of the state to raise the level of nutrition and the standard of living and to improve public health. Next, organization of agriculture and animal husbandry, provision for free and compulsory education for children, protection and improvement of environment and safeguarding of forests and wildlife, protection of monuments and places and objects of national importance, separation of judiciary from the executive, promotion of international peace and security. Now, when we look at the content of all these directive principles, we see that they may be classified based on certain principles or ideologies that is contained in them. So we can classify our directive principles mainly into socialistic principles, Gandhian principles, and liberal intellectual principles. So socialistic principles, they basically reflect the ideology of socialism, basically about a welfare state, justice, and things like that. So they basically direct the state to promote welfare of the people, by securing social order, then they direct the state to secure right to adequate means of livelihood, equitable distribution of material resources for the community and for the common good, prevention of concentration of wealth and means of protection. So all the socialistic principles are aimed at the welfare of the masses. They basically try to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor, the haves and the have nots. So they try to give the benefit of development equally to all. They want equal justice to all. They want equal distribution of wealth to all. Promoting equal justice and providing legal aid to the poor. So basically, they have this concept of welfare state in mind. So now, coming to the Gandhian principles. See, all our Gandhian principles that we have enlisted in the list of directive principles, they are based on Gandhian ideology. Now, they represent the program of reconstruction which Gandhi enunciated during the national movement. Basically, they focus on the village empowerment or village panchayats, and basically the freedom, development, and economic independence of the village industries and the village. They all aim at a independent, self-sustainable village that Gandhi, uh, wanted, or what Gandhi professed during the national movement. So some of the Gandhian principles include to organize village panchayats and give them the necessary powers and authority to enable them to function as units of self-government. So this is a very important, to organize village panchayats and endow them with powers and authority to enable them to function as units of self-development. So, to give life to this particular directive principle, we have given constitutional status to village panchayats. So, this we have a separate chapter on the 73rd and 74th Amendment of the Constitution, which was about giving constitutional status to village panchayats and nagar palikas. Next is to promote cottage industries on an individual or cooperation basis in rural areas. Then to promote voluntary formation, autonomous functioning, democratic control, and professional management of cooperative societies. Next is to promote educational and economic interest of SCs, STs, and other weaker sections. Prohibit consumption of intoxicating drinks and drugs. This was very important, why we still have teetotaling in some of the states. Then, importantly, prohibit the slaughter of cows, calves, and other milch and draught cattle, and to improve their breeds. So, all Gandhian concepts. The next, coming to liberal intellectual principles. So they are mostly based on the ideas of, or the ideology of liberalism, mainly constraining mainly focusing on individual freedom and individual liberty. So to go through some of the directive principles based on liberal ideology, to secure for all the citizens a uniform civil code throughout the country, provide early childhood care and education for all children, organizing agriculture and animal husbandry, protect and improve environment, safeguard forests and wildlife, protect monuments, places, and objects of artistic or historic importance, separating judiciary from the executive, and then promoting international peace and security, and maintain just and honorable relations between the nations, and also foster respect for international laws and treaty obligations, and to encourage settlement of international disputes by arbitration. So these are basically about the classification of the classification of directive principles into three categories. Okay, so thank you. This is all for today.